Last week, a new cursor competitor was launched. It's called Windsurf. And when I tried it, I was blown away. Let me show you how you can use it to build a full stack app without any coding experience. With this app, I built a Calendly clone. It's called Calendly. So I'm on the home page of the app right now. You can get started or you can sign in. Get started takes you to a sign up flow where you can sign up with your email address or you can use your Gmail to sign up directly. When you sign up, you are redirected to the dashboard of the app where you can create a new event which is basically a meeting link or a meeting type. Over here you see any upcoming meetings that you have, and simply you can connect your Google Calendar so that it can receive or send events to your Google Calendar. Let's click on click now. So for this integrates with Google Cloud, and this gives permission to this app to access your Google Calendar. Once you give this access, it can create events on your Google Calendar. It can also connect Google Meeting links directly to any events that you create. It can also delete events from your calendar. So once you have connected your calendar, then you can update your availability on the app as well. So for availability, it already have a default availability for anyone that comes on the app. You can basically delete slots. You can change timings of a certain day. And when you click on this button, the same setting is applied to all days of the week. You can again remove some of these. You can add multiple slots on a single day, and you can save all of that. Additionally, you can add your time zone as well. It detects your time zone automatically based on your computer's location, and you can change that as well. Apart from that, you can add specific dates of the week where you would want your functionality to be different. Right now, we only set up our availability for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. If I want my calendar to be available on any specific day, let's say on a Saturday, if I select on a Saturday, I can choose the time slot I want to be available from. And when I click on save, it automatically updates my availability for that day within the calendar, and it shows it here. I can delete it as well. And once I've set my availability, then you can go and create events here. So let me create an event. Let's create a 30-minute meeting. I can choose any time here. I can also add 45. Let's keep it 30 for this event. And once I create this event, then I'm redirected on the event type page where I see that this meeting link is now created. I can click on share. And when I click on share, then basically a meeting calendar, the booking link is copied to my clipboard. And when let's say I go on an incognito tab, I put the link here, and then I'm redirected to the booking page. You can send this to anyone. Over here, the person can fill in their name, they can fill in their email address, they can select a date. And once they select a date, it recognizes their time slot, it recognizes their time zone, and basis the day that you have selected, it updates the time zone. So for example, if I select a Friday or a Thursday where we did not had any slots available, no slots would show up here. If I selected to be a Thursday when we had slots available, it would take a minute to go through the database, and then it will show all the available slots. I can select a slot. I can click on schedule meeting. And once I do that, then on the backend, the meeting is scheduled, and you see a booking confirmation message here. And even when you go on your calendar, you can see the meeting being created. So this meeting is created for 1 p.m. on next Tuesday. This meeting is also shown on my dashboard on the home page. So over here, I see a new meeting created on my calendar. I can directly join the meeting from here. As you can see, the meeting here already has a Google Meeting link that was created uniquely for this meeting. I will show you how you can build this full stack app just using Windsurf without any coding or technical expertise. Okay, so let's get started with creating this app. So in this full stack app workflow with Windsurf, there are 3 major steps you would be doing. First one is creating a requirements document. So over here, we would be listing down all the features, all the tech, the entire tech stack we would be using, the file structure of our code base, and other major considerations. Then you would be inputting these information to OpenAI's own model, which is by far the best one for doing anything like this, any complex task like creating a PRD. So you would be inputting this, and then we would be putting down this PRD into Windsurf, where we would be creating the app from following these instructions. So coming on to the first part, creating a requirements document. So these are the major steps that I usually include in any of the PRDs that I make. The overview, the features, the tech stack I'm using, the packages we would be using, database structure that would be there. Since this is building a Calendly clone would require us to create multiple tables for storing information of the user, their available time zones and everything. That's why we would want to provide clarity over here to Windsurf on what we want to build, and lastly, the file structure of our code base. So starting with the first part, the overview. So this is basically a description of what we are building. So I will just put in that we are building a Calendly clone called Calendly. Then coming on to the features. So over here, be as exhaustive as you want to be. These are over here. Just mention that what all you want, because if you just mention Calendly clone to ChatGPT, it would come up with all the features that you might not need. Then coming on to the tech stack. So for this one, we would be using Nextjs with React 18. So if you are following Nextjs, then you would know that they have launched a new model, which is Nextjs 15. But a lot of technologies like Shadcn, Drizzle does not work with it right now. They are not compatible. So we'll stick to Nextjs 14 with React 18. Then Shadcn, Drizzle ORM, which is basically a package for using Neon as a database. Then Clerk authentication, and we would be using Google's Cloud API, which is for using their calendar. Then apart from that, we would be also needing some packages. For this, we would be using Zord. Zord is basically a validation package that would make sure that anyone who fills in their details in forms are following the right type case or right structure. For example, someone who is putting on their phone number can only put in digits in this case if you use Zord. Then coming on the database. So over here I have mentioned the tables that I would want and what is the relationship between these tables. It's best to think through. You can also just go to ChatGPT and ask that which is the best structure for you. That is what I did. But it's best to have this already defined while you are giving a PRD to Windsurf or any other tool like Cursor. And lastly, the current file structure. So for this, we would have to create a project in Windsurf before this. So I will open up the terminal, and over here I will put in the command to create a new. And over here I will put in the command to create a new Nextjs project. So we'll just mention it here. Give me the command create a Nextjs project. Please note I want to use Nextjs 14 with React 18. So it has gave us the command. Let's change the name of the app. within this command. So we want it to be Calendly. So we have a new folder created. Let's just go to the file. So we'll go to Calendly. Now we can move on to the next steps, which is getting the snapshot of the file structure from here. So for that, there is a command called tree that you can use. So I will just ask Cascade to give me the right command for it. So it directly gave us the file structure, which was not what I was expecting, but even better. So I will just put in the file structure here. Now let's go to ChatGPT for creating the PRD. I will go to ChatGPT. I will select Open Preview for this one. Create a PRD for a Calendly Clone app. Make sure to include the steps of implementation broken down into smaller parts. Keep 8 to 10 steps. This is something that I've found to be optimal. Include all the implementation details that a developer would be needing. Make sure to include the final file structure that the developer needs to be creating in the PRD. Now let's share rest of the details. Within our project, we would be creating a new folder called instructions, where we would be saving all the details regarding what we want to build, for example this PRD. And within this, I would be creating a file called instructions prd.md, where we would be putting our PRD. So apart from including a PRD of what you want to build, another major aspect that platforms like Windsurf need your help in is giving them the right syntax, because Windsurf uses Claude Sonnet 3.5. This is the most advanced model, but it does not have access to the internet. So all the changes in the schema that has happened in the last 5-6 months, it does not have tabs on top of that. That's why I tend to use wrong syntax as places. So what we will do for it is that we will go to Perplexity and we will ask it to give us the right syntax. So we'll just go here, we'll put in the prompt. Consider that you have asked a developer to work on your app and you want him to use Drizzle ORM on top of NeonDB. He knows everything about the tech side but don't have grip on the Drizzle ORM syntax. Write down all the syntax he would be needing to build the app. Only use most up-to-date sources. So let's send this. So it includes all the syntax, all the commands that you'd be needing. So let's copy this from here and create a new file within this folder called Drizzle syntax. Similarly, let's do this for other tech stack that we are using for Shadcn and for Clerk. Now we have the syntax for all the APIs that we are using, including Clerk, Drizzle. So now we would be moving on to the next step. Perfect. Let's copy this and put it into Windsurf as well. Now from this point, we just have to implement this with Windsurf. So let's open up a new window. Let's switch it to write. Now that we have our PRD and the syntax for the APIs that we're using in the place, let's remove this date. We don't need it. Let's remove version, we don't need it. And yeah, let's prompt Windsurf to start following this PRD. So the step 1 is setting up the project. That include creating a Nextjs project. Since we already have that, so we'll just mention it in the dashboard here. We already have a Nextjs project set up. Please skip this step. It understood that we have a Shadcn syntax folder here, and it directly went onto that for getting the command for installing Shadcn. So this is something that is really impressive about Windsurf, that it automatically just goes through your file and understand that what needs to be where. So we are done with the first steps of creating this. The step 1 is done. Let's move on to the step 2 of implementation. Let's move to implementation. As you can see, it already understood that we have a Clerk syntax file within our instructions folder, and it went through it and it got the right syntax from it. Let's on the side, let's also start running our app on the local server to see how the changes are being made. So there is an error in configuration because of which we cannot run it. So let's also put that back into the cascade window once these edits are done. It has also created a .env.local file where we have to put in our API keys from Clerk. So let's do that before putting back this error. So let's create the .env.local file. Let's copy this. Let's create a new Clerk project. We'll create a new project called Calendly. Let's select email and Google for the authentication options. We are using Nextjs. We have already installed the dependencies. Now let's just copy our API keys from here. So let's accept all of these changes. Please help fix this error. That came caught when we tried running app on the local server. Now once Cascade has finished making the changes, let's run our server again. Let's go on to the link. And our homepage is loading now. Let's click on Get Started. It redirects us to the sign up page. Let's click on Sign In. It redirects us to the sign in page. So let's get started. Let's create an account. Once we connect our account, we are redirected to a dashboard. But since we have not set up these pages yet, there is nothing over here. So let's move on to the next step. I would now also create a new chat window because I felt that the context window of this chat is running out. So let's start a new chat. Let's get to the third step. Meanwhile, we can go on to Neon and create a new database for our app. So let's click on new project. Let's give it the name Calendly Clone. Create. We would be using Nextjs for this project. So let's go to .env here. We will copy this and put this back into our project. Let's accept all these changes that it made. Then in .env.local, we already have the database URL, but I see that we have apostrophe at the end of it. Let's just remove it. Save it again. Let's kill this terminal window and start our server again. Also, since we have pushed these database changes, we should be seeing them in our database. So let's go here in the tables. So within table, the tables have not been created. So it seems that the changes were not pushed. This. Now that cursor have made changes to our code base, let's run the server again. I see that our home page is loading. I've already logged in. Let me try logging out. Let's see the get started page. It redirects us on sign up. Let's try the sign in page. It redirects us on sign in. So let me just click on get started, continue with Google. Awesome. Our dashboard is now working. Let's move on to the third step now. I'll just log out again so that we can keep testing the entire flow. I will open up a new chat window and it has created a new folder, schema.ts. I will also check if it has correctly defined the relationship between the schedules and the availability table. I don't see an availability table here. One cool thing about Windsurf is that it understands where your cursor is. So I will just go within this file to the place where I want it to look at. Basically these three tables and connection between them. I will mention it to look at the section, look at the section 6.1 of the doc. Now let's push these changes to our database. So once we have pushed these changes, we should be able to see the tables that are created within our Neon database. Now let's save this. Let's accept this command. Seeing some error in that. Let me just try running the command directly in the terminal. All the changes are applied. Let's check on Neon if we have these tables. Perfect. This looks fine. Now we can move on to the step 4. I will create a new cursor, a new cascade chat. Notice that we already have a dashboard page within the app subfolder. So I'm not sure if we need a new one. So let's just mention it here. So let's open up our PRD to see if the implementation is happening correctly. It wants it to create a dashboard page for the logged in users, then implement CRUD operations for event types. This apparently means creating, updating and deleting the pages. I'm not sure that what R means here. And using sort for validating event type and editing forms. These are the 3 sub steps within it. Let's run the app on the local server. The home page looks fine. Let's click on get started. We are on the dashboard. There is a dashboard header here. We can create an event type. Let's click on that. The event creation and Zod validation step within the event module seems to be working fine now. The only thing that we have to fix now is editing and deletion of the events. Let's prompt cursor to do that. There are some components that need to be installed. So let's ask it. Let's run our server again. On the events page now, there is a edit button. Let's test it if this is working fine. Let me try changing the description here. Yeah, the edit button is working fine. Let's test the delete button as well. Both the edit and delete functions are working fine. Let's move to step 5. So the availability module is working, but the UI over here is really difficult to use here. Any person would have to add a new time slot, then they would have to select a day, then input the time, and then everything would be happening. Let's fix the UI. But before doing that, let's also organize our code base. So right now it created a new folder called API and availability for creating the API route for this. Rather than that, we would want to move this into actions. Let's save this. Let's come back here. Let's select any random day. This is a beta now. Let's just go back to this and let's see where we can improve this UI. So one thing definitely is that I would want the time zone and the time slots to be saved separately, where saving the time zone should be a one-time task for anyone, and rest of the time slots can be edited on the go. Then I would want each day to be available here, and a person can add slots for that day or remove or just disable that day basis how they want to. They don't have to select day from a drop down. And lastly, they should be able to edit time slots for a day. They don't have to remove the entire day. So let's just fix these changes. After the changes are applied, the UI looks easier for the user, where they can save the slot for every day. Let's try to see if this function is working fine. Show saved. And when I go on the dashboard and I refresh it, the schedule is also updated here. This functionality is now working fine. Let's move to step 6. Let's run the app on the local server to see if it's working. On the events page, we get a share button now. I believe this is where the meeting link is generated. Once I clicked on it, it is copied to my clipboard. Let's paste this in the new tab and go on the bookings page. Once I fill in my details, I can select the slot. And when I click on schedule meeting, I'm redirected to a booking page. Add to calendar button works as well. The functionality seems to be working fine. Now let's move to the next part on integrating the entire setup with Google Calendar. Meanwhile, let's activate our Google Cloud API keys. So on the console cloud Google platform, you would have to go to product library to activate calendar APIs first. As you can see, I've already created a project for this. I will visit the credentials section to get my API keys. So over here, I would have to get my client ID and client secret into the .env local file. We'll paste both of them. And once I've added them on the project, I will just test the entire flow. Once we sign up and go on the platform, now there is a widget to connect my account. I will connect my account. The app is not verified yet. That's why there would be a warning before that. Once I connect my calendar, then I should be able to create a meeting link that directly books a meeting on my Google Calendar. So as I see here, the authentication has happened correctly. Let me try by creating a event link. I will open up this link in a new incognito tab. And after I schedule a meeting, this meeting should be shown on both the person who has booked the call and on the person whose calendar the call is booked. So let's go to my Google Calendar. And yeah, I see a meeting on the time. It is also shared with the email that I booked this meeting from. It also has a Google link. We are done with the backend stuff now. All the functionalities are built. The next part is improving the UI of the app. For this, we would be taking help from another AI tool. You must have heard of V0. It's by Versal, and it's the best AI tool out there for creating UIs. So what we will do here is that we would be giving out our code to V0 and we would be asking it to improve UI of the app while keeping rest of the functionality as it is. So let's get the code of our homepage. Then go to the app. Let's copy this. And once you run this, you might get an error. For example, how I am getting an error here because in the initial prompt, we mentioned that we want all the functionality to be working according to our app. So it has only changed the UI. That's why the code is failing when we run it on V0. But when we paste it within our code base, then it should be working fine. Let's test this one bit. Let's copy it from here and paste it back. Let's save this. And try running it on our local server. Fine. So if I go to the homepage of my app, it is updated. But again, there are still some modifications I would want to do. You can keep prompting V0 to improve this UI further. And once you are similarly, I will follow the same process for all the other pages of my app. At this point, you can play around with the kind of UI you would want for your app. And V0 will just change the specific parts of your app relevant to the UI. It won't change any other functionality of your app. It's usually best to do it towards the end so that any functionality does not get disrupted. If you start with the designs and then build the app, then there is a lot of added complexity that is avoided in this method. So experiment with the kind of UI you would want for your app with different kind of design themes and colors. Thanks for watching the video. Drop your questions in the comments and do subscribe if you would like to see more such tutorials. Peace.